The scream of metal against pavement sliced through the alley like a warning shot. A battered sedan swerved, tires shrieking, then choked to a halt beside a grimy auto shop. Smoke hissed from the hood as the door slammed open. A man in his mid-40s stepped out, clutching his chest like the panic might crawl back in. No name, no words. Just frantic breath and hands, trembling with purpose. Inside, Lucas wiped grease from his arms and peered out the open garage. His instincts flared, not with fear, but familiarity. That man wasn't just broken down. He was running from something worse than engine failure. The stranger staggered forward, eyes searching for tools, not help. Lucas didn't ask. He slid his heavy red toolbox toward the sidewalk without a word. The man knelt beside the hood, lifted it, and dove in like he'd done it 100 times. This wasn't chaos. It was precision. In that sharp instant of heat, grit, and metallic groans, the stranger and the mechanic formed a silent bond. Not over trust, over shared survival. Lucas didn't ask for explanations. He never did. But he watched closely. The man, late 40s, soaked and silent, handled the engine like a surgeon in an ER. Every turn of the wrench was efficient. Not one wasted movement. That wasn't panic. That was experience. When the car roared back to life, the stranger didn't leave. He stood, looked Lucas in the eye and said, "You got a clean 10mm in there." Lucas smirked, buried under coffee cans and regrets. The stranger cracked the first real grin. Lucas stepped out, arms crossed as if still deciding. "You from around here?" "Not anymore." "Name?" "Dean." Lucas tilted his head, weighing the name like it meant something. Dean said, "I was an engineer, laid off, life went sideways." Lucas replied, "Tools aren't cheap, not lending them to just anyone." Dean nodded. "I wouldn't either." And yet Lucas had. Because some instincts don't ask permission. The next morning, Dean showed up again. Not with an engine problem, but with 2 cups of black coffee and a quiet, hopeful look. Lucas didn't comment. He just took the cup, turned, and walked back into the garage. Dean followed. That became routine. Each day, Dean came with coffee, and eventually, he started staying. Cleaning tools, changing oil, fixing engines like it was second nature. Lucas didn't say yes. He didn't have to. One afternoon, while they hoisted a transmission, Lucas finally muttered, "You fix this, you're on payroll." Dean grunted, "It's already fixed." That was the first time Lucas laughed in weeks. There was no contract. Just grease, burnt knuckles, and a rhythm that worked. They weren't friends. Not yet. But something raw and useful had started to take root. In the corners of silence, a partnership was growing. Weeks passed. Dean never asked for pay. Lucas never brought it up again. Dean just worked. 12-hour days. No complaints. He brought in customers too, guys from his old life who still trusted his hands. Business picked up. Slowly, then fast. Lucas expanded hours. Dean started running diagnostics like he owned the damn place. One night, Lucas found him under a car well past closing. "What the hell are you doing?" he asked. Dean said, "That customer's heading cross-state tomorrow. Didn't want to risk a failure." Lucas nodded, watching the man's hands move like they were born under steel. "You're not just a guy who needed tools," Lucas said. Dean replied, "And you're not just a guy who had them." That was the first time either of them acknowledged the weight of what they'd built without planning it. They weren't partners yet. Not officially. But the garage felt like it had 2 hearts now. Customers noticed. Some called it Lucas and Dean's. One day, a man in a suit pulled up in a Bentley. Clean cut, dirty, gold cufflinks. He said he needed work done, but his eyes were scanning the space. Dean caught it too. Later he said, "That wasn't a customer." Lucas said, "That was a scout." Dean nodded. "For what?" Lucas said, Don't know. But they don't drive Bentleys to busted garages without a reason. The next morning, a sealed envelope was on their counter. Inside was a proposal. Acquisition. Buyout. Terms generous. Too generous. Lucas handed it to Dean without a word. Dean read it. They're not just buying tools, he muttered. Lucas said, they're trying to buy us. That changed everything. Dean held the proposal in his hands like it might burn through the paper. He reread the figures, the branding rights, the equity clauses. They're offering 7 figures for the shop, he muttered. Lucas raised an eyebrow. We don't even have a sign. Dean smirked. Exactly. The offer was a trap, disguised as reward. The investor wanted control, not partnership. Dean paced the office, hands slick with sweat. You ever think this to be something people wanted? Lucas said. No. But I always knew we built something people needed. Dean tossed the paper on the counter like it insulted him. They're not interested in the garage. They're interested in us. Lucas said. Then they better understand, we don't come cheap. The silence after held a strange gravity. Not fear. Not ego. Just realization. They'd built value from rust and trust. Now, someone wanted to buy it. But value didn't mean for sale. The investor came back the next day. This time, with a suit 2 shades darker and a briefcase that probably cost more than the garage rent. He didn't smile. Didn't blink. Just laid out spreadsheets and spoke in flat corporate rhythms. Franchise model, nationwide scaling, licensing of name and image. Dean sat stiffly, jaw clenched. Lucas watched, silent and still. The investor said, you two have something raw, untamed, but we can shape it. Dean snapped, that's the problem. You want to shape something you don't understand. The investor adjusted his cufflinks. Emotion doesn't scale. Systems do. Lucas leaned forward slowly. We're not a system, we're a heartbeat. The investor laughed quietly. Heartbeats fail. Dean stood. So do machines. Lucas didn't speak again. He just held the man's stare until he packed up his numbers and left. The silence after felt holy, as if they'd just saved a soul. Their own. That night, Lucas found Dean sitting alone on the garage roof, legs dangling over the edge, cigarette glowing red. The city pulsed quietly beneath them. We said no, Lucas said. Dean nodded, staring into the dark. But that was a real number. Lucas sat beside him. So was our worth. We just didn't need someone else to calculate it. Dean said, I don't know what we are, man. We're not just a garage anymore. Lucas replied, we're a brand now. A story. That scares them more than our wrenches ever will. The quiet between them stretched, not heavy, but vast. We do this on our terms, Lucas continued. We don't sell out. We build in. Dean flicked ash into the wind. Then we build it big. From steel, not spreadsheets. They didn't toast. Didn't hug. Just watched the night roll over the streets they'd once scraped to survive. Within a week, they rebranded. Not with neon lights or marketing gimmicks, but with honesty. They painted a new sign by hand, Revival Auto. It meant rebirth. Not just engines, but lives. Word spread faster than they expected. Instagram posts. Local news. Photos of 2 grease-covered guys who turned a toolbox into a business. Customers came from neighboring cities. Some just to meet them. One young woman walked in crying. Her father's old truck had died. Dean fixed it overnight. Lucas refused to charge. She left a note that read, you don't fix cars, you fix people. Dean held that note like scripture. We didn't plan this, he whispered. Lucas smiled, wiping oil from his hands. Best engines don't run on plans, they run on fire. And they had plenty of that. Enough to keep building. On their terms. They didn't chase money. But money chased them. A video clip of Dean rebuilding a carburetor went viral. A documentary crew showed up days later. 2 men, 1 garage, 1,000,000 lives touched. That's what they called it. Dean hated it. "We're just mechanics," he muttered. But the world saw something else. 2 men who didn't quit, who lent tools to strangers and built something sacred from bolts and belief. A venture firm offered them backing, with 0 interference. Equity for independence. Lucas read the fine print 3 times. Dean only asked one question: "Do we still own the floor?" When the rep said yes, Dean smiled. "Then let's build a whole damn chain." And so, Revival Auto began its expansion. Not through acquisition, but through invitation. Each new shop wasn't a copy, it was a torch passed from one believer to another. Because sometimes, all it takes is one borrowed toolbox to ignite a movement. Revival Auto's second shop opened in a forgotten corner of Detroit, where factories once roared and now only ghosts lingered. Dean stood beneath a faded billboard, breathing in rust and dust. "This place has history," he said. Lucas nodded. "Let's give it a future." The shop had no walls yet, just frames, scaffolding, and echoes. They weren't just building a business. They were resurrecting faith. Local teens started hanging around, watching, asking. One kid, 17, wiry, eyes full of heat, asked Dean if they were hiring. Dean handed him a wrench without a word. The kid followed him into the skeleton of a garage and never left. They didn't just teach engines. They taught redemption. And that's when it hit them: they weren't scaling a company. They were building sanctuaries. One shop at a time. Word traveled fast. Not because of marketing, but because people talked. A local news segment featured Revival Auto's second location. "They don't ask for resumes," the anchor said. "They ask if you're ready to start over." Phones rang off the hook. Investors circled again. This time, with open hands and softer language. But Dean didn't soften. "The only deal we make is with the street," he told them. Lucas added, "We've got rules. You build where it's broken. You hire who's been left behind." One investor smiled tightly. "That won't scale." Dean replied, "Neither does trust, but it grows." The rep left without another word. The next day, 3 ex-cons showed up asking for work. One of them hugged Lucas after his first paycheck. "No one's ever bet on me," he whispered. Lucas looked away so they wouldn't see him tear up. They faced backlash. Always comes when you change things. Some local garages complained about Revival, undercutting them. Others said they were glorifying failure. One night, someone spray-painted, "You're not heroes," across the shop wall. Lucas scrubbed it in silence. Dean watched. "Leave it," he finally said. Lucas paused. "Why?" "Because we're not heroes. We're just people who didn't stay broken." The next day, someone taped a note to the garage door. "You saved my brother. Don't stop." Lucas framed it above the counter. Revival didn't fight the hate. It absorbed it, turned it into fuel. For every attack, 5 more showed up asking to learn. The world didn't just want cars fixed. It wanted second chances rebuilt in steel and sweat. That's what Revival became. A forge for hope. Lucas got a call from someone unexpected, his estranged father. Years of silence. Years of blame. Now, a trembling voice asked if he could bring in the old family truck. "It's the only thing I got left," he said. Lucas didn't answer at first. Just stared at the phone like it might explode. Dean noticed. "You? Okay?" Lucas nodded slowly. "Might be time to fix more than engines." The next day, his father showed up. Wrinkled, weak, but holding the keys like they weighed 100 pounds. They didn't talk much. Didn't need to. They worked side by side under the hood for 6 hours. When the truck roared to life, Lucas stepped back, hands shaking. His father touched his shoulder, then left. No words. Just peace. Sometimes fixing something broken outside helps repair what's shattered inside. Dean sat in the back of the shop one evening, staring at the old toolbox, the same one Lucas had loaned him that first day. It still had the same dents, same rust, same weight. But now it was a relic, a sacred symbol. Lucas walked over, saw the look on his face, and said nothing. Just dropped a cold soda beside him. "You thinking about the offer again?" Dean asked. Lucas shook his head. "Thinking about what happens if we don't protect what we've built?" Dean tapped the lid of the box. "We started with this, not money, not dreams, just trust." Lucas replied, "And we'll finish with the same." Outside, a new recruit was changing his first tire, fumbling but smiling. Inside, the two men sat beside a box that had once been borrowed, and now had become legend. The third Revival auto shop opened on the edge of a rough neighborhood in New Orleans. Lucas insisted on that location. "We don't just grow where it's easy," he said. Dean nodded. "We grow where roots are needed." But this time the community pushed back. Flyers were torn down. The garage was egged twice before it opened. One night, a brick shattered their front window. Dean wanted to board it up. Lucas swept the glass instead. "They don't hate us, they just don't trust us yet." So they opened the next day with food trucks, music, and an open floor. Free oil changes, free advice, free second chances. By sundown, the lot was packed. Locals danced beside lifted hoods. Kids held socket wrenches like trophies. The same man who threw the brick returned and asked for a job. Lucas hired him on the spot. The next few months blurred. Revival Auto expanded from 3 to 7 locations. Not with venture capital, but with belief. Mechanics trained under Dean took over new branches. Each garage told its own story but shared the same core: rebuild people first. Lucas traveled constantly, helping new teams set up. He slept in motels, ate from vending machines. But every shop opening was a celebration. Community BBQs, reunion hugs, customers leaving thank you notes in tool drawers. But then Dean stopped answering calls. Lucas felt it like a snapped belt under pressure. He drove all night back to their first shop. Found Dean asleep on a creeper beneath a car, tools scattered. "I never rested," Dean muttered, groggy. Lucas helped him up. "This thing we built, it needs both of us standing." Dean nodded. "Then I better stop crawling." Dean took 2 weeks off. First time in years. He spent it in the mountains, no phone, no noise. Just sky and wind. Lucas ran the business solo and felt the strain. Every decision echoed. Every delay felt personal. Then came the call. A Revival mechanic had collapsed from heat exhaustion in Phoenix. Lucas flew there immediately. Sat beside the man's hospital bed. The mechanic said, "I didn't want to fail you." Lucas choked. "You didn't, we failed you." That night, he rewrote every policy: mandatory breaks, better insurance, mental health days. Dean returned and saw the changes. "You tightened the bolts," he said. Lucas nodded. "Because this isn't just business anymore, it's family. And we don't let family break." Dean placed a hand on his shoulder. "We build, but we also protect." A podcast host called them the Blue Collar Revolution. Magazine covers followed. A book offer. Then a documentary deal. Dean refused at first. "They'll glamorize it," he said. Lucas disagreed. "They'll humanize it." They compromised. Tell the truth or don't tell it at all. The film crew arrived, filming quiet mornings, gritty hands, grease-streaked smiles. They didn't script anything. They followed the rhythm of the shops. One scene captured a veteran fixing an old Jeep while sharing his PTSD journey. Another showed a teen wiping tears after building her first engine. When the trailer dropped, it went viral. "This isn't a business," one commenter wrote. It's a resurrection movement. Dean watched it, silent. Then he whispered, maybe it was worth filming after all. Lucas smiled. We were not the stars. They are. The premiere was held in an old drive-in theater, half restored by revival crews. Rows of cars filled the lot. Locals brought chairs, snacks, tears. The film played on a massive sheet between two light poles. Dean stood at the back, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Lucas stood beside him, hands in pockets. As the final credits rolled, the crowd stayed silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then the entire lot erupted in cheers. Dean shook his head. We were supposed to fix radiators. Lucas grinned. We did. We just didn't stop there. Kids ran up for pictures. Strangers asked for hugs. One man handed Dean a broken wrench with, "Thank you," scratched into it. Dean held it like it was gold. We didn't build a brand, he said. We built belonging. Lucas looked out over the crowd. And they showed up. A year passed since the documentary. Revival Auto had expanded to 15 locations, but something began to change. Interviews, meetings, keynote talks. Dean missed engines. Wah. Lucas missed silence. They still loved the mission, but the noise grew. One afternoon, at the original shop, they found themselves elbow deep in an old Cadillac. No cameras. No press. Just grit. Dean muttered, I needed this. Lucas said, me too. They didn't talk for hours. Just turned bolts and bled knuckles. When the engine finally turned over, they stood in the soft hum, smiling like boys. Dean said, let's scale back. Protect the core. Lucas nodded. Not quit. Just breathe. They realized what mattered wasn't growth. It was grounding. Revival didn't need fame. It needed focus. Not on how far they'd come, but why they started in the first place, with one toolbox and a quiet yes. They returned to their roots. Cut out the noise. No more conferences. No more media tours. Revival Auto focused inward. Each location got a personal visit. Not from managers, but from Dean and Lucas. They checked in. Not just on numbers, but people. At a small Arkansas branch, they found a teenage girl fixing brakes with shaky hands. Lucas crouched beside her, guiding gently. You trust the tool. Then you trust yourself. She smiled. Dean leaned against the lift, arms crossed, watching her confidence build. These were the moments that couldn't be scaled, only experienced. They left that day with grease on their jeans and purpose in their chests. It wasn't about mechanics anymore. It was mentorship. Human repair. Their legacy wouldn't be buildings. It would be the people they touched, and who would someday take their place. A storm swept through Tennessee and wiped out one of their garages. Roof torn. Tools ruined. Customers waiting. Dean arrived first, boots in mud, sleeves soaked. Lucas showed up hours later with a truckload of supplies. We rebuild, he said. No debate. No pause. Staff, neighbors, even rival shops came to help. People handed tools. Brought food. Kids stacked lumber. Within 3 days, Revival Auto Tennessee reopened. No ceremony. Just a handwritten sign on cardboard. Still here. Dean stared at that sign like it was scripture. They didn't come because of us, he said. They came because they saw themselves in this. Lucas replied, we're not leading a company, we're lighting fires. It was more than business. It had become movement. One built not with ambition, but with alignment. Not profit, but people. Lucas received a letter, handwritten, no return address. Inside was a photo of a man in a prison jumpsuit, smiling, standing beside a makeshift workbench. The note read, you fixed more than cars. You fixed me. Lucas passed it to Dean. Neither spoke. Just sat still. Later, Lucas whispered, we'll never meet all of them. Dean nodded. But they'll carry us forward. They didn't chase impact, but impact found them. In every wrench turned, every life touched. Dean placed the photo beside the old toolbox. "This is the real equity," he said. Lucas smiled. "And we're rich." In that moment they knew, what they'd built couldn't be sold, bought, or broken. It was alive. It breathed in steel, oil, sweat, and forgiveness. And it would outlast them. A reporter once asked them, "What's the one moment that changed everything?" Dean said, "When I opened that toolbox." Lucas replied, "When I handed it over." 2 simple acts. No applause. No witness. But those moments carried the weight of mountains. They didn't know then that one borrowed tool would become a business, a lifeline, a revolution. Years later, at a quiet workshop reunion, a teenage boy stood before them holding that same toolbox, cleaned, preserved, honored. "I want to start my own garage," he said. Lucas looked at Dean. Dean smiled. "Then it's yours now." One gesture became legacy. One loan became legend. And Revival Auto, once just a name painted on plywood, became a symbol of resilience, of second chances, of strangers turned brothers. All because one man said yes without knowing what he was unlocking. News arrived in a whisper. Dean had collapsed during a speaking engagement. Stress. Exhaustion. He hadn't told Lucas about the headaches, the skipped meals, the dizzy spells. He didn't want to worry anyone. But worry arrived anyway. Lucas flew to the hospital that night, storm in his chest. Dean was pale under white sheets, hooked to wires, quiet for once. Lucas sat beside him, fists clenched. "You carry too much alone," he whispered. Dean cracked a weak smile. "I learned from you." Silence stretched between them like a broken belt. Then Lucas leaned closer. "We built this together, but I need you to live it with me, not die for it." Dean's eyes watered. "I just wanted to prove I was worth the chance you gave me." Lucas squeezed his hand. "You already did, now rest." It wasn't about revival anymore. It was about survival. Dean spent 2 months in recovery. Lucas took over every operation, but this time he didn't power through alone. He asked for help from every shop, every manager, every mechanic. And they rose. They took shifts, made decisions, shared burdens. Revival ran not on 2 men anymore, but on hundreds. Dean watched from his porch, blanket wrapped around his shoulders, laptop open to live security feeds. Mechanics laughing. Teens learning. Oil-stained joy. "It's breathing without me," he said one morning. Lucas visited weekly. They talked about nothing, weather, food, dog videos. But one day, Dean said, "Promise me something." Lucas leaned forward. "Anything." Dean smiled faintly. "Don't lose yourself saving everyone else." Lucas stared for a long time. "Not without you," he answered. They both knew the truth. The movement was bigger than them now. Dean returned to work slowly, 1 hour at a time, one location at a time. He didn't lead meetings or give speeches. He taught. Quietly. Patiently. Showing a new mechanic how to listen to a misfire. Guiding a single mother through her first oil change. Lucas watched him move with reverence. This wasn't about titles or expansion anymore. It was about legacy. Revival Auto hosted its first all-staff summit, not in a convention hall, but in an old warehouse they rebuilt together. No suits. No badges. Just calloused hands and shared stories. One by one, people stood and spoke about what Revival had given them. A job. A future. A second chance. Dean stood in the back, arms crossed, heart full. Lucas joined him and said, "You see this?" Dean nodded, tears threatening. "We didn't build a garage," he whispered. "We built a world. But storms always return." A corporate chain, fueled by envy and greed, launched a smear campaign. Accusations. Lawsuits. News headlines twisted Revival's image. Dean's health wavered under pressure. Lucas snapped in interviews. And donations slowed. Some shops feared closure. But they didn't fold. They invited cameras into every shop. No PR team. Just truth. They showed what Revival really was. Bruised hands teaching soft hearts. Engines humming beside second chances. A documentary rebuttal aired. Raw. Honest. Powerful. Public support surged. Donations flooded back. The lawsuits crumbled in court. When it ended, Dean sat with Lucas, weary but smiling. They came for the fire, he said. Lucas replied, and they left smoke-choked. They didn't just survive. They reminded the world. Revival wasn't built for glory. It was built to outlast attack. And it did. Late one night, Lucas stood alone in the original garage, fingers grazing the old red toolbox. Dusty. Scratched. Sacred. Dean's voice echoed in memory. We build, but we also protect. He took out the first wrench they ever shared and set it on the bench. A note rested beside it, Dean's handwriting. When you're tired, remember, you're not alone. Revival was never yours to carry alone. Let them help. Lucas exhaled slowly, eyes wet. Behind him, the lights turned on. Dozens of faces, mechanics, trainees, even that teenage boy who once held the toolbox, stood waiting. Silent. Present. Lucas didn't speak. He didn't have to. The movement had matured. The legacy was rooted. The mission, still burning. Because Revival Auto wasn't a company. It was a light passed hand to hand, forged in grit, sealed in brotherhood, built to outlast both men who started it. Dean's health declined slowly, like an old engine sputtering in cold weather. He still visited the garage, sat by the bay door with coffee, nodded at every trainee walking past. But the fire in his step dimmed. Lucas noticed the silences stretching longer, the laughs coming slower. One morning, Dean handed him a folded envelope. My last request, he said softly. Lucas hesitated. Don't talk like that. Dean smiled. You can't tune a machine forever. Inside the envelope was a single sentence. Open a school. Dean had dreamed it quietly for years. A place to teach not just engines, but healing. Lucas looked up, heart stuttering. We'll build it, he said. Dean exhaled, eyes misty. Name it after the first thing you handed me. Lucas nodded. Toolbox Academy. In that moment, legacy shifted from steel to seed. Something new was about to grow. Toolbox Academy opened 2 years later on the same corner where Dean first borrowed the tools. A red brick building with a rooftop garden and a steel sign above the entrance. Toolbox Academy, built to rebuild. Its first students were single moms, veterans, teens from halfway homes. Lucas walked the halls daily, carrying Dean's photo in his wallet. He spoke to each class personally. You're not here because you failed. You're here because you're still fighting. One student asked if Dean would ever visit. Lucas looked away. He's here, he said, pressing his palm to his heart. A mural of Dean covered the west wall, painted in motor oil tones. Standing beneath it, Lucas whispered, he handed me a wrench, and I built a world. The school wasn't a tribute. It was a continuation. Revival had passed the torch. One evening, Lucas returned to the original garage alone. He sat at the bench, toolbox open, same as day one. His fingers grazed the old wrenches, now smooth from years of use. A letter sat folded inside, Dean's handwriting again. If you're reading this, you kept going. Thank you. Keep going. Lucas exhaled, tears slipping without shame. He didn't feel alone. The walls whispered memories. Laughter. Arguments. Breakthroughs. The door creaked, and in walked the teenage boy who once received the toolbox. Taller now. Confident. Need help? He asked. Lucas smiled. Yeah, let's tune the old one together. The boy grabbed a socket and knelt beside him. A new cycle had begun. The founder had become the guide. The student, the teacher. Legacy wasn't etched in stone. It was forged in repetition. Years passed. Toolbox Academy expanded. Revival, Auto thrived. But the original garage remained untouched, sacred ground. Mechanics from all over came just to walk its floor. Some wept quietly. Others left tokens, old gloves, dog tags, notes. Lucas kept every one. A small museum formed within those four walls. Not of tools, of stories. Then one day, Lucas stood outside the shop as a little girl approached, holding her father's hand. "Is this where it started?" she asked. Lucas nodded. "Right here," she whispered. "Someday I want to build something too." Lucas knelt to meet her eyes. "Then always keep your hands dirty and your heart clean." Her father wiped a tear. They walked inside together. The garage wasn't just a place anymore. It was a shrine to human will. Lucas returned to the hospital room where Dean had once laid. This time, older, grayer, but not broken. He placed a photo beside the window, Dean holding the original toolbox. Beneath it he wrote, "He didn't fix an engine, he sparked a generation." As the sun dipped, Lucas whispered aloud to no one, "You'll never know how many you saved." And maybe that was the point. Revival wasn't about recognition. It was about ripple. Toolbox Academy now had dozens of campuses. Mechanics wore patches with Dean's initials. But the loudest legacy lived in quiet places, in lives quietly rebuilt. One act of trust. One borrowed toolbox. One stranger who didn't walk away. Lucas stood, placed his hand on the window, and left with a heart both full and aching. Dean was gone. But revival never would be.